For all type of video and audio transfers on DVDs or CDs, please contact Joe Borg on 0414 429 391. Good day, Maltese show. I'm Joe Borg and I'm going to be with you for another week, and I trust that you're going to enjoy the show. If you look at the picture of the website, you see the arrow flashing. When you go on the website, that's the button, the I, that you need to click on, not the other one. We're going to open the show with a beautiful song by KINNIE, Australia. Malta Love Story.
I was walking down the boulevard next to the sea. People were sitting on the benches, talking in sweet evening melodies. I remembered the blue grotto glistening, the wind blew the heat away, as a newly built hotel cast its shadow on the Golden Bay. Dawn is coming, time is running, hey, we still got another day. See a red line coming up over the hill. When the marshes like fishermen pulling their nets, I was on one of those many bus rides no one ever forgets. St. Julian's in the evening breeze, stars shining down so clear, as empty bottles and plastic bags are swept under the pier. Dawn is coming, time is running, hey, we still got another day. No more hiding, no more fighting over things that are ours anyway. I can see a red line coming up over the hill. You don't know where the water goes, you don't know where the river flows, you don't see every tree that dies, but every day do see greedy eyes. St. Julian's in the evening breeze, the stars shining down so clear. We can't let all this beauty just light coming up over the hill, and I know I can do something, and I will.
Hey, you look so fine in a red dress, like a drop of wine, and we'll be making sparks.
Learning Maltese before you go to sleep.
Ma stajtx norqod. Ma stajtx norqod.
I caught a cold and coughed the whole morning.
Blajt riħ u solt filgħodu kollu. Blajt riħ u solt filgħodu kollu. Blajt riħ u solt filgħodu kollu.
I have a fever of 39 degrees.
Kelli deni ta' 39 ċentigradi. Kelli deni ta' 39 ċentigradi. Kelli deni ta' 39 ċentigradi.
I am ill. I feel very unwell.
Ma niflaħx inħossni minix f'sikti. Ma niflaħx inħossni minix f'sikti. Ma niflaħx inħossni minix f'sikti.
I get headaches regularly.
Taqbadni wġieħ ta' rassi kwiet. Taqbadni wġieħ ta' rassi kwiet. Taqbadni wġieħ ta' rassi kwiet.
My stomach hurts. What shall I do?
Għandi l-istonku juġani x'nista' nagħmel? Għandi l-istonku juġani x'nista' nagħmel? Għandi l-istonku juġani x'nista' nagħmel?
Murders in Malta.
How Francesco?
Tajtek atakuġi. Benajtilek. Tibla għawad beku. U jalaw ja baħnan. Imxi miħan xaħġa laqqat ma jitqala. Xidirlek, Għat rajt xi ħaġa bħal din? Ejja, mela tibża.
Issa mhix qed beżżani. Huwa jassaq tagħha.
Meta Giuseppe baqa ma ritornax lejn id-dar, ommu missieru ħarġu jfittxuh. U għalkemm kienu jnaqdu magħhom xi nies oħrajn, sanżul ix-xemx kienu għadhom ma sabuħx. Issa kien dalam sewwa. Għamlu rapport lill-pulizija u rħewla lejn id-dar inkwitati u qalbhom sewda aktar mid-dlam ta' barra. Jistennew li jisbaħ u jittamaw li Giuseppe jitfaċċa. L-għada filgħodu kmieni bdew it-tfittxijiet mill-pulizija. Ma kien kollu għal xejn, għax Giuseppe baqa' ma nstabx.
Giuseppe! 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 Giuseppe!
Issa li jiem bdew jinbidlu f'ġimgħat u ġimgħat fix-xhur, iżda x'kien sar minnu l-abbati ta' ħaż-żabbar kien baqa' misteru. Issa bdew jaħsbu li t-tifel seta' ġie misruq. Bdew jiġru xnijat li kienu rawh daqqa f'post ieħor. Saħansitra kien hemm min qal li kien lemħu l-Xandra, l-Eġittu. Missieru ma felaħx għal dan it-tiġrib, marat u f'qasir żmien imbaram. Ommu Margherita issa sabet ruħa waħedha mal-fantażmi ta' żewġa u ta' bina. L-imsejkna moħħa ma felaħx għal dan l-ġeħ kollu. Ma setax tifhem kif fi żmien hekk qasir seta' titlef leżeż żewġ persuni li kellha. Il-qalb tal-om kienet minfuda għal-mewt u qajla jibdiet tinqata' mir-realtà. Sa ma tilfet ir-raġuni għal kollox u spiċċat maqfula fl-isptar tal-moħħ.
Malta u LIL-HINN MINHA.
Kont fortunat biżejjed li għamilt ħafna kodba fuq ħafna perjodi u storja ta' Malta, din kienet fetħit li għajnejja l ħafna affarijiet li jien stess ma konx naf bihom. U nispera li min ikollu l-ktieb u jaqrah jifhem dak li femt jien meta qrajtu u mbagħad għamilt il-fotografija tiegħu.
Fi kliem il-President George Vella, illum il-ġurnata nsemmu kliem u kunċetti bħalma huma is-sostenibilità, it-tibdil fil-klima u l-preservazzjoni tar-riżorsi naturali. Iżda meta wieħed jiżen u jixtar xi jsarfu dawn il-kliem, insibu li dan il-ħsieb tal-kavallieri tal-Ordni San Ġwan dwar il-ħażna tal-ilma huwa sors importanti ta' ispirazzjoni għalina il-koll. Bħala pajjiż, konna diġà nafu l-problema li kellu pajjiżna minħabba in-nuqqas ta' provvista tal-ilma. Spiss Malta kienet tiffaċċja kriżi relatata mal-ilma. Fid-dinja moderna tal-lum fejn il-konsum tal-ilma dejjem jola mal-bżonnijiet tal-iżvilupp tas-soċjetà, ninsabu f'sitwazzjoni li għandna bżonn ħafna aktar attenzjoni. Il-pubblikazzjoni tfornina b'tarif interessanti dwar il-ħidma li twetta il-Korporazzjoni għas-Servizzi tal-Ilma sabiex tassigura provvista dejjema u adekwata għall-esiġenzi ta' pajjiż modern fid-dinja tal-lum. Naqraw dwar is-sorsi differenti li llum jagħtuna l-ilma, il-ħidma sabiex jitnaqqas it-telf tal-ilma, il-laboratorju u proġetti infrastrutturali, kif ukoll il-produzzjoni tal-hekk imsejjaħ New Water.
Importanti li l-lum ġurnata n-nies jifhmu l-effort kbir li għamlu ħaddiema tal-Korporazzjoni tas-Servizzi tal-Ilma. Fil-waqt li l-korporazzjoni tipproduċi l-ilma li ġi 65% minn desalination plants li għandna ma' Malta Għawdex u 35% minn groundwater. Mbagħad jiskatta l-proċess ta' distribuzzjoni. Ovvjament il-ġurnata bħalma semma wkoll fil-ktieb 8000 Years of Water ma rridux biss l-importanza just distribution, imma importanti ħafna il-mezz li bih isir dan id-distribution. Importanti ħafna li nagħmlu dan bl-iktar mod effiċjenti possibbli. Rajna kif fl-aħħar 10 snin il-korporazzjoni għamlet rekord, niżlet minn 20 ILI li huwa l-Infrastructure Leakage Index minn 20 għal 1.8 li huwa world record. Meta nqabblu lil nfusna ma' entitajiet oħrajn barra minn Malta dan huwa rekord. Iġifieri l-ġurnata nistgħu nkunu kburin u niftaħru bil-fatt li l-ilma u Malta tiġi distributed għand il-konsumaturi tagħna u negozji tagħna bl-iktar mod effiċjenti u bl-inqas losses possibbli. Tajjeb li ngħidu li sa 10 snin ilu kellna medja ta' 4000 metru kubu fis-sija li bdejn ħela, kienet jinħela. Illum ġurnata niftaħru li għandna numru ta' madwar 360 metru kubu biss fis-sija li qed jinħela. Ovvjament dana wasalna sawhekk huwa bl-isforz tal-ħaddiema tagħna, sforz kontinwu li qed nagħmlu. Ovvjament kif li aħna iżola bi ftit riżorsi niżguraw li r-riżorsi kollha li aħna għandna nużawhom bl-iktar mod possibbli u bl-aħjar mod possibbli. Tajjeb li ngħidu li llum il-ġurnata mill-wastewater, mid-drenaġġ li aħna qed niġbru u qed nittrattaw qed noħorġu il-water għal new water għall-agrikoltura. Ġifieri dan l-ilma li aħna tipproduċu minn l-STPs tagħna mill-treatment plants qed noffruh mbagħad b'xejn lill-agrikoltura. Ovvjament dan again huwa sforz sal-ħaddiema tal-investimenti kollha li qed tagħmel il-Korporazzjoni tas-Servizzi tal-Ilma li fih qed naraw ġabra sostanzjali dan ix-xogħol qed jiġi showcase fuq dan il-ktieb fenomenali li ħarġet il-Korporazzjoni tas-Servizzi tal-Ilma. Semmejna wkoll l-importanza li n-nies tkun taf bħala korporazzjoni x'aħna nagħmlu. Illum ġurnata aħna nagħtu importanza kbira il-fatt li aħna nkunu in-line man nistana u nisimgħu lin-nies tagħna. Infatti palma semmejt qabel l-effiċenza li aħna qed niżguraw, ġaħna niżguraw l-ilma kollu li aħna nipproduċu jasal kollu għand in-nies tagħna. U qed nagħmlu hekk anke wara l-meter. Ġifieri mill-lum ġurnata aħna permezz ta' teknoloġija u permezz ta' AI u programmi li aħna nużaw nafu meta household ikollha leakage. Ovvjament aħna li qed nagħmlu qed nibagħtu emails, nibagħtu itri għand in-nies, ninfurmaw in-nies minn qabel ma jirċievu il-kont tagħhom. Jiġifieri mbagħad hemmhekk in-nies jistgħu jitkellmu ma' plumbers u magħna biex niżguraw li ma jkunx hemm ħela. Jiġifieri ovvjament aħna qed nagħtu importanza kbira il-xogħol aħna, il-xogħol li qed nagħmlu permezz tal-ħaddiema tagħna u ovvjament tajjeb il-nies hemm wara tkun taf l-isforzi kollha li qed tagħmel il-korporazzjoni.
Nirringrazzjaw lill-Korporazzjoni għas-Servizzi tal-Ilma għal kopja li oġoba tad-dinna sabiex stajna nwaslu dan is-servizz. Inħeġġu lil kull min iħobb isir jaf aktar dwar l-istorja ta' pajjiżna, f'dan il-każ l-maniġjar tal-ilma sa mill-miġja tal-bniedem fil-Gżejjer Maltin sabiex jakkwista din il-pubblikazzjoni li saret ukoll ban filantropiku peress li fi żmien il-miliet idħul mill-bejħ tagħha mar fil-fond magħruf bħala il-Community Chest Fund.
Malta exploring, the smallest country in Europe, probably the world.
The country mourned the journalist and demanded an end to corruption and lies. Now, Malta has to prove it can implement the rule of law and respect the freedom of the press, so as to ensure Daphne Caruana Galizia did not die in vain. We're leaving the main island and taking the ferry northwest.
Wir fahren jetzt nach Gozo. Es ist eine Insel, auch noch
We're heading for Gozo, where we're going to visit the city of Victoria. It's a small city, but it has 2 opera houses. The question is, why 2? Gozo is the second largest island in the Maltese archipelago. It's only 14 kilometers long and just over 7 kilometers wide. Most of Gozo's 31,000 residents live in the island's capital, Victoria. It's a bit quieter here than it is on the main island. I'm most interested in the 2 opera houses, the Aurora and the Teatru Astra. Here, I'm meeting the director, John Galaya. The 2 buildings are just 300 meters apart.
I came to Gozo here, and I have one question. Why do you need 2 operas here on a very small island?
It's because there is this rivalry between the 2 band clubs in Victoria. The other band club has also the Aurora Opera House, and there's this Teatro Astra, which is the seat of opera as well. And out of sheer artistic rivalry, but in a good sense, in a competitive sense.
How is the competition affecting on the quality of the productions you're doing?
Obviously, there will be much more engagement and commitment by the members of the opera at the Astra, who are actually engaged to promote the highest artistic level possible.
Both opera houses were built at the end of the 1960s, and they have been vying with one another since then.
Visitors, do they go to both operas, or you have the feeling some are really loyal to one opera?
Some of the supporters may be that.
It's like a football club.
Yes, yeah. Yes,
it's almost like a football club then.
Yes, it is. It is. But I mean, as a sense of maturity, let's put it that way, we've gone from strength to strength, and people are going over to each other's theaters, and first of all, also to see the level, so that the competitive edge is always there. It is very much like a mecca of artistic activity.
Yet, the island nation is surprising in another aspect. In 2017, the Maltese parliament voted overwhelmingly to legalize same-sex marriage. Since then, Gozo wedding planners Jules Wiltshire and Catherine Goods have almost had more homosexual than heterosexual customers. Business is booming.
You would both stand behind, if I can just bring you round. Of course. You would both stand facing each other. The readings and your vows and everything and the exchanging of rings would be done here.
Okay.
All your guests will be seated on the terrace looking out this way. So obviously they've got this fantastic view.
Back in Valletta, I'm amazed at how progressive Catholic Malta's approach is to transgender and homosexual issues. In the Spartacus Gay Travel Index, the island is ranked as one of the most LGBT-friendly countries in Europe. I'm meeting Clayton Marchica, an LGBTIQ community organizer, to find out more.
The Catholic Church is very influential here on Malta. How is that affecting on LGBTIQ rights?
I would say since the 2011 fourth referendum showed that people want to move on and have the right to divorce, it kind of changed the mentality even for the church to not be so vocal on personal freedom of what people wanted to choose. Unfortunately, still an issue of control over women, and when it comes to rights, reproductive rights in Malta, it's still quite lagging behind.
But when it comes to LGBTIQ rights?
So yeah, that's the contrast here in Malta. We have a disparity where LGBTQ rights are far ahead, I would say, in the world. In general, we don't hear about aggression or homophobia directly towards our community as such. But yes, we've had cases this year, for example, towards a trans woman who faced physical and online abuse. So that was quite shocking for us.
Clayton organizes the annual Malta Pride Week and Pride March.
Clayton, you work for an organization that takes care of the LGBTIQ rights here on Malta. What do you do exactly?
Even though Malta is very small, we still face a lot of isolation. The fact that we don't have a lot of LGBT places where to go to, so it's based on events. And I think that's one of the things that we're doing as an NGO, Allied Rainbow Communities, to create that sort of sense of belonging and community for our LGBT kind.
Malta has many facets. Most people only know the place as a beautiful holiday island.
GESU, HELISNI MID-DROGA. Jesus, save me from the drugs.
You raise me up so I can stand on mountains.
Nilqawkom mal-programm ieħor eżist telespettaturi ta' ħabbejtek u bħassoltu nħeġġukom biex intom f'din is-sija li għandna flimkien tpoġġu bil-qiegħda fil-kumdità ta' darkom u forsi wkoll jista' tkunu miġbura mal-familja jew mal-ħbieb tagħkom biex issegwu u flimkien nitgħallmu u naraw lid setana tal-mulej kif f'Malta Għawdex qed taħdem bil-bosta u bil-qawwa billi tmiss, tfejjaq u titrasforma il-ħajjiet ta' kuljum. Il-kelma tal-mulej, fil-kelma fil-Bibja, fil-Rumani, qabel ma ngħaddu għall-mistieden li għandna illum ġdid li għall-ewwel darba qed jidher fuq it-televiżjoni, però nixtieq ngħid skrittura waħda mill-Kripta Rumani kapitlu wieħed. Rumani wieħed. Ħalli wkoll nifhmu għaliex il-ħajja ta' dak li jkun tiġi mibdula u it-trasformata. Vers 16, Romani kapitlu 1, vers 16, Pawlu l-Apostlu jgħidan, jien ma nistħix mill-Evanġelu. Għax l-Evanġelu ta' Sidna Ġesu Kristu, l-Evanġelu ta' Saltna, huwa qawwa ta' Alla, qawwa, dik il-kelma qawwa hija fil-Grek hija l-kelma dunamis, tfisser il-qawwa mirakoluża u sopranaturali ta' Alla, għas-salvazzjoni, u l-kelma salvazzjoni tfisser fejqan, ħelsien, prosperità u anka li bniedem jitwieled mill-ġdid. Mela l-Evanġelu ta' Sidna Ġesu Kristu, l-Evanġelu ta' Saltna huwa l-qawwa ta' Alla għas-salvazzjoni ta' dawk kollha li jemmnu. L-ewwel illudi, u mbagħad il-Grik. U fih fil-Vanġelu tidher il-ġustizzja ta' Alla. Min fidi għal fidi, skont ma hemm miktub, il-ġust jgħix bil-fidi. Illum ħanaraw u ħanisimgħu xhieda ħajja tal-qawwa tal-Vanġelu. Kif bniedem persuna midlam imur għad-dawl u d-dawl talla jibda jiddi fih. Kif persuna marida tista' tfiq, kif persuna fil-ħażen il-mulej jagħmilha qaddisa, persuna fid-droga il-mulej jeħlisha u jġibha nadifa. U kwalunkwa huwa x'inhuwa il-background tiegħi jew tiegħek, il-Vanġelu ta' Sidna Ġesu Kristu u l-Vanġelu tas Saltna huwa ir-risposta għax fih hemm il-qawwa t'Alla u fih tidher il-grazzja t'Alla, il-qawwa t'Alla soprannaturali biex tbiddel lil kull qalb li tersaq lejn Alla bil-fidi. Nilqakom illum għall-ewwel darba fuq dan il-programm u naħseb jiena fuq it-Televiżjoni Nazzjonali lill-ħabib tagħna KENNETH VASSALLO. KENNETH, welcome to ħabejtek siħbi.
Għandi pjaċir, Basti.
Kif inti ġbi?
All right.
L-ewwel darba li tidher illum mhux? Qatt ma kont fuq television?
Dirt.
Dirt ħafej, mela.
Ma biċċa żgħira x'imbagħad kont meta kont ġo programm.
I see, okay.
Kont ġo programm partikolari u kienu ġew ta' television.
Okay. Ilu dan xejn jew?
Ilu naqra.
Ilu naqra.
Ilu naqra.
U dak kont ġa inti fi Kristu kont ġa f'talmu lej dak idea?
Le, ma kontx.
Ma kontx. Naħseb is-suġġett ma kif.
Kont qed nagħmel programm, kont ġast qed nipprova naqta'. Tajta droga.
I see.
Tajta.
Mela qabel ma tgħidilna eżattament. Number one, inti KENNETH minn fejn inti?
Minn Santa Lucia.
Minn Santa Lucia.
Minn naħa l-oħra.
Mela inselmu
Santa Lucia.
il-laħwa, il-ħbib tagħna minn Santa Lucia li qed isegwu dan il-programm. Il-familja ta' KENNETH ovvjament, u l-qraba, u kuġini, u t-sijiet. U koll nix insellem il-daw kollha li huma fil-ħabs. Nix insellem ukoll il-ħbib tagħna u l-laħwa lill-lawċin kollha. U nix infakkarkom waqt li qed issegwu dal-programm biex intom għawċin, eżazaħwa għawċin, tinaqdu maħna ġol komunità River of Love, xmara ta' mħabba, kull nar ta' ħamis fis-6 ta' filgħaxija bħalissa niltaqgħu ġewwa it-Tiġrija Palazz, kull nar ta' ħamis għall-għawċin ejjew iltaqgħu magħna għal studju mill-kelma talb u fejn tara wkoll tesperjenza l-qawwa tal-mulej. KENNETH. Min inti, brawent? Number one, minn dejjem għax Santa Lucia, minn dejjem kontaj Santa Lucia?
Aħna konna noqogħdu ħattarxin.
Għajsi, u hija.
Ilu ħafna,
Fej kontu noqogħdu ħattarxin? Xina kontu ħattarxin?
Sister Street.
Għajsi.
Xin ħat ispiċċa lejn ġo ħattarxin ġifieri.
Ġifieri xorta viċin ta' Santa Lucia jisu hemmhekk, jew?
Ekku ta'.
Xorta.
Ejwa, imma niftakar kont immissjajt. Naqra dak iż-żmien. 11 sena kull ma kelli jiena l-kbir. Fost erba'.
U l-lum kemm inti kbir, broda? Kemm għandek żmien?
Jien għandi 45.
Għandek 45, għandek żgħir ma' 45.
45 sena.
Tajjeb. U nafu li ovvjament inti eżempju ċar tal-qawwa tal-mulej.
Ekku.
Għax ovvjament ma kontx dejjem dak il-ġuvni li aħna qed naraw illum.
Ekku.
Inti ejdinna, brother, number one, x'għamel miegħek il-mulej? Ejdinna da xejn, x'kont tagħmel kif?
Kif tħalt f'din.
Kif tħalt, inti tħalt, inti spiċċajt.
Jiena kont droga.
U kont droga, ħafna kont droga, brother?
Mhux ħataħu mill-ewwel.
Ħafna? Bdejt bil-ftit.
Tibda bil-ftit, tibda tfittex, imma minn flok tfittex.
X'ġelek jifittex id-droga, brother? In-nies li jfittxu droga. Forsi ovvjament kollha raġuni differenti, però x'taħseb li inti inqlilek u forsi nies li inti għamilta magħhom x'fittext x'ġelek tfittex id-droga?
Image.
Image?
Ejwa.
Interessanti. Image imma ngħid jiena image. Jiena qatt ma ħadd droga, għamilt żbalji oħrajn fil-ħajja tiegħi, però id-droga qatt ma għamilta flimma sens image għax ix-satt id-droga ma.
Eżatt, kont niftaħar.
Droga ma fiha xejn pożittiv is-saġġ.
Jien kont niftaħar posti.
Tiftaħar?
Ejwa.
Tiftaħar li tuħu droga?
Kont niftaħar b'dak kollu li kont nagħmel ħażin, ejwa.
Estrina? U kont ħallat tipi ta' droga differenti?
Kont nħallat. Ejja, missejt naħseb jiena droga li daħlet hawn Malta minnar li nafuha mu.
Sewwa. U x'kont tista' semmi?
Bħal ħaxixa. Ħaxixa, heroin. U coke. Kokaina.
Għall-ewwel għalissa jiena qatt ma ħadd droga u ringrazzja l-mulej skansani milli qatt kelli dik it-tentazzjoni jew xi ħadd joffrili, però meta inti bdejt tieħu droga, mal-ewwel bdejt tħallas għalija?
Ejwa ta'.
Mal-ewwel.
Mela taqsam. Hekk konna naqsmu.
Imma pereżempju l-ewwel darba tiftakar l-ewwel darba li ħadet droga?
Ma niftakarx.
Tiftakarx, kif kien jagħtik ċirkustanza li mort ħadd droga l-ewwel darba?
Kienet dik kuntetta wkoll fil-programm il-dik tiegħek.
Sewwa.
Kodna mela maħbiebu partikolari. Kienet l-għażla tiegħi.
Kienet l-għażla tiegħek, ħadd ma sforzak.
Ħadd. U niskuż u nitlob maħfra ta' meta jiena provajt nippunta subajja lejn xi ħadd għax kienet l-għażla tiegħi. Jiena ritta.
Inti ritta.
Ejwa, jiena ritta.
Ma kellek ċirkustanza li forsi kont għaddejt minna inti u li forsi naf u fittix xi ħaġa ulterjuri bħal droga? Ta' kemm kellek żmien meta bdejt id-droga inti?
Ma kont żgħir ħafna ta' kelli 17.
17, insomma, mhux kbir, 17.
Le, ma kontx kbir.
17 għandek ovvjament taħt ir-responsabilità tal-ġenituri tiegħek.
Ma niftakar anki fuq ix-xogħol qabel, ġifieri l-ewwel xogħol li kont dan. Kien hemm il-marijuana għaddejja.
Ukoll.
Ejwa. U fil-post tal-break ta' ġifieri. Nilabbu l-futbol bejbu, imma kienet għadha ma daħliġ fija dik il-ħabta.
Dik il-ħaġa.
Qed tifhem, imma meta għaxbitni u nixtieq ngħid xi ħaġa. Għax ħafna affarijiet jirreklamaw kemm it-tajb u kemm il-ħażin. Jien kont inħares għax l-ewwel semmejtlek l-image. Imma kont inħares lejn artisti pereżempju.
Artisti?
Kantanti tal-Pink Floyd pereżempju. Qed tifhem.
Ġifieri daw huma kantanti li lilek eżatt, ġifieri għamlulek eżempju ħażin u influenzawk fin-negattiv minn din.
Għandhom diski sbieħ eżatt.
Iva, sbieħ insomma, ma jgħidux glorja lil mulej.
Jiena u laqqas kont.
Ġifieri meta ngħidu sbieħ minn lat punto di vista ta' mhux Alla ma jarahom sbieħ.
Naħseb.
Alla ma jarahom sbieħ. Imma ovvjament aħna tinsemmu gruppi li ovvjament li dawn mhux qed iġibu xi glorja lil Alla, imma sfortunatament daw it-tip ta' gruppi u gruppi oħra bħalhom meta inti qed tismagħhom l-istess spiritu li jġorru fuq ħajjithom jiġi fuq dak li jammirhom u li jammirhom l-idoli tiegħu. Daw kienu forsi l-idoli tiegħek bħala kantanti u oħrajn bħalhom. U ovvjament aħna nafu li daw ħafna kantanti bħal daw jieħdu droga. Allura inti kont ħares li bħala xi ħaġa cool naħseb.
Ekku, jagħmilha dak. Għax naf li jagħmilha dak ma nagħmilx jien hekk kont.
Allura inti ma kontx pereżempju ma nafx jiena qatt ma ħadd droga, però kieku jiena ngħid għalija nibda ngħid imma jiena għamela xi ħaġa dak irid noħodha bil-Borgin.
Le, ma kontx ngħid.
Għax bħalija jiena kull rispett lejhom sew Pink Floyd, sew gruppi bħalhom u oħrajn. Naf li hemm ċertu mużika li hija tal-widna ħanejdu hekk. Mill-lat Kristjan ma ġib xejn glorja lil Alla fil-kliem, żgur. Imma ngħid imma daw kelli kantanti oħra tajna fil-ħajja tiegħi li kont inħares lehom bistima lillum il-ġurnata ovvjament għax rajt id-dawl letteralment ta' Kristu. Ma nistax inħares lehom bistima, anzi nitħassarhom kemm huma kemm għandhom ħajjithom imkissra. U xogħod minnhom illum mietu minħabba droga jew minħabba abbużi ieħor ta' alkoħol u fajt bħal daw. Imma qatt ma ddejtlek minn ratek tgħid daw jiena m'għandix għalfejn ħares lejhom bħala.
L-iktar waħda naħseb prinċipali li jiena kelli ċertu rabbja lejn Alla.
Kellek rabbja?
Ejwa. Kelli rabbja meta kont żgħir ejwa, ċertu affarijiet kont inwaħħal
falla.
Letteralment falla.
Kont inwaħħal u għaliex twaħħal falla fl-imma sien. Ġġelek li inti twaħħal falla. Ġġelek twaħħal falla.
L-esperjenza u kont l-esperjenza.
Tista' tgħidilna xi ħaġa tista' tħossok komdu li tgħidilna minn xiex forsi rajt jew esperjenzajt fil-ħajja tiegħek.
Ma kienx easy, da kulħadd tiegħu jħoss sewwa. Imma xi ftit jew ġejt naqra bbuljat jien l-iskola.
Ġejt ibbuljat?
Ejwa, ġejt naqra bbuljat. Nibbulja u sfortunatament ibbulja.
Kont ibbuljanti wkoll taħseb? Kont buljanti wkoll, ġifieri kont ibbuljat ħadd ieħor?
Ekku, kont
Issa inti għal dawk li ma jafux il-Kenneth, Kenneth kemm minni nafu jidher il-persuna kwieta ħafna. Kien naħseb kif qed taraw li anka kif jitkellem ċertu.
Li jiena ġieli ddejjaqni. Li jiena ddejjaqni ġieli, eżatt, u di jista' jkun li l-ixju tiegħi jiġifieri jiena qed tifhem għax niftakar llum jiġifieri kellimtu milux intqajt ma' ħabib partikolari u x'għandartlu qalli 'Qed bellaħnek ta' kif issa da ma jafni ftit Ma
Kif
kienx
kont?
isawwat nita.
Meta inti kont dak iż-żmien li qed tgħid issa, kif kont differenti milli inti llum?
Kont qed infittex u kont qed.
For just a few islands located in the central Mediterranean, Malta has a long and rich history. Let's take a look at the world's most interesting archipelago. Malta is a relatively small group of islands. Since it is in a strategically important location, it has played a significant role in the Mediterranean. Through its history, different powers always tried to take over the archipelago. The modern country of Malta consists of 5 islands. The largest island is called Malta, and to differentiate it from the country, it is often known as Malta Island. Then there is Comino and Gozo. Completing the set are the uninhabited islands of KENNETH and FIL-MAKTUR. Malta is located about 58 miles south of Sicily, 180 miles north of Libya, and 180 miles east of Tunisia. The geographical proximity to all these countries probably emphasizes the area's strategic importance. People have tried to use these islands as a naval base throughout history, since it gives easy access to Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. While it might seem like a nice position to be in, history proves otherwise. The islands have seen the rule of Phoenicians, Carthaginians, Romans, Greeks, Arabs, Normans, Aragonese, Knights of the St. John, French, British, and others. This diverse ruling history has left an indelible cultural mark on the culture of Malta. Today, Malta is the world's 10th smallest country, occupying an area of just 122 square miles and home to a population of around 525,000. However, in the distant past, things were quite different. For one, the archipelago wasn't always an archipelago. Malta stands on an underwater ridge that connects Sicily to northern Africa. This entire ridge served as a dry land bridge between Europe and Africa in the latter part of the Miocene epoch. For a long time, it was believed that the archipelago's first inhabitants dated back to 5700 BCE. Now we know with relative certainty that the first inhabitants arrived sometime around 5900 BCE. Similarly, another misconception was that these people were Sicilians. After analyzing the DNA of archaeological artifacts, we know that both Europeans and Africans existed in this part of the world. These Neolithic people made up fishing and farming communities. In the early days, they lived in caves and villages. One of the earlier reasons to believe that they were from Sicily was the pottery designs, which matched those of Sicilians. There is also some evidence of hunting activities, but we believe that the people did not rely on it as much. But like any civilization, this one evolved as well. As these people came into contact with other cultures, their pottery designs began to change. Anyhow, the people continued farming until the land gave in. The soil could no longer sustain agriculture, and the land saw a prolonged period of drought. For the following millennium, the islands were abandoned. Life returned sometime around 3900 BCE. This second wave of settlement involved a cult of the dead. The presence of such a group can be gleaned from the collective tombs cut into rocks. Archaeologists have even found an underground burial chamber known as HELISNI, containing many human remains. The chamber has been given the status of a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. Other constructions from this time consists of the Gday Temple in Gozo, one of the oldest freestanding structures in the world. This civilization lasted for about 1500 years. Their disappearance is not entirely understood, but some speculate that they might have been wiped out by other warring peoples, while others think they could have fallen victim to climate change. The Tarxian cemetery culture arrived soon after that. In around 2500 BCE, the Borg in Nader people settled in the region. Around the 8th century BCE, the Phoenicians began to make contact with the islands. There is some evidence of their presence as an urban culture. The presence of Phoenician tombs indicates a healthy population that probably used the site to expand their seafaring ambitions. Some existing temples were converted into Phoenician structures. They would have used the area as an essential outpost in their Mediterranean trade routes. A settlement was present in the present-day cities of Medina and Rabat, which the Phoenicians called Meleth, or Safe Haven. There is more robust evidence of Carthaginian presence. Around the mid-6th century BCE, some of the Phoenician colonies fell under Persia's rule, including Malta. Archaeological evidence assures us that by the 4th century BCE, Malta had become a trading post, connecting the two sides of the Atlantic. Sicily in the north, and Tripolitania in the south. Another interesting thing that happened in this era was the inclusion of Hellenized motifs. In architecture and pottery, we noticed Hellenized features start to become prominent. However, due to a lack of evidence, nobody is sure of the extent to which the society was Hellenized. Some claim it could have been a Greek colony, for example, Apoikia, while others refute any such assumption. Jump forward to the 3rd century BCE, and we know for certain that Malta was raided by the Romans. In the Second Punic War, the islands came under the control of the Romans. According to the Roman historian Titus Livius, commonly known as Livy, the Punic garrison on the island surrendered to the Romans, and the archipelago became a part of the Sicilian province. Still, the Romans did not interfere in the domestic affairs of Malta. In 60, St. Paul the Apostle was shipwrecked on Malta and started preaching Christianity. The Roman era brought interesting changes to the archipelago. The city of Meleth was renamed Melite and started expanding. It grew to such an extent that it occupied most of the expanse of the modern-day city of Medina and even a little bit of Rabat. Archaeological evidence reveals that the city employed adequate defensive maneuvers like building thick walls on all sides. Not only that, but the settlement also had protective ditches. Evidence of the Roman presence in the area is unmistakable. The antiques and other remains show a clear connection to Sicily. Malta eventually fell under the rule of Constantinople in the 6th century. Some people believe that the Vandals and the Ostrogoths may have occupied the islands briefly in the 5th century, but there is no conclusive evidence for this hypothesis. Under Byzantine rule, Malta remained a part of the Sicilian province. Evidence from this era shows that the islands may have played an important strategic role for the empire as harbors for the next couple of centuries. During this time, the improved fortifications may have reduced the size of the main settlements. In the late 9th century, Muslims from North Africa took over the city of Melite. After the city's destruction, some historians claim it remained uninhabitable until 1050, while others think it might have been thriving until that point. The Byzantines tried to take the Muslim settlement back, but to no avail. Nevertheless, the islands changed hands once again with the Norman conquest. They took over Sicily and from there continued onward to Malta. The Muslim and Christian presence in the previous millennium had substantially impacted the island. Even after it fell to the newfound Kingdom of Sicily, a healthy Muslim population remained in the area. A Muslim uprising in 1122 was squashed, and the islands were reconquered. The Muslims were allowed to practice their religion freely until the 13th century. Malta had many influences. The Byzantines had brought Eastern Orthodox, the Arabs had brought Islam, and now the Europeans were bringing Roman Catholicism. One of the primary reasons for this was the migration of Sicilians to the islands. The archipelago would undergo many changes, indicative of the changes in the north. Malta continued to have strong links with North Africa. However, a few historians believe that there were no Muslim civilians or serfs in the region by the mid-13th century. In 1530, Holy Roman Emperor Charles V gave Malta to the Order of St. John. They were more commonly known as the Knights Hospitaller, which was a military order of the Roman Catholic Church. The Knights ruled the islands for the next 275 years, making the island their domain. The Knights were initially tasked with providing assistance, medical or otherwise, to pilgrims. The Ottoman Empire had laid siege to Malta in 1565, but failed to capture the settlement. For the next 2 centuries, the Knights turned the island into their home, but by the late 18th century, the order was declining. In 1775, the Maltese revolted against the Knights in a rebellion known as the Rising of the Priests. It is also remembered as the Maltese Rebellion of 1775. The uprising was squashed, and the leaders were killed or exiled. The Knights had not interacted much with the Maltese, still they managed to imprint much of their cultural identity on the population. However, the Knights' declining prowess meant that they could not rule the archipelago for much longer, and so, in 1798, Napoleon took over the islands. Still, the French presence on Malta was short-lived, as the British took it over by 1800. 2 years later, the French signed the Treaty of Amiens with the British, in which the British were supposed to leave the island. The British failed to adhere to the treaty. The Maltese demands for self-rule were not heeded, as the Maltese harbors were an essential strategic asset for the British. The Maltese were refused home rule, and until the 20th century, the island's political status underwent several changes. During the Crimean War, the economic condition of the islands improved, but after the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869, they retracted. In 1921, the Maltese were given the right to self-govern under British rule. The British retained the right to control foreign and military issues while the local government handled domestic affairs. In 1933, tensions flared again as the archipelago returned to a strict colonial regime. During the Second World War, the Axis powers bombed the island, but the locals did not surrender. The British acknowledged the bravery of the local people. In 1947, Malta was given the right to self-govern again. It was revoked in 1959 and then restored in 1962. The islands received their official independence on September 21, 1964. On December 13, 1974, Malta became a republic. The rule of the Nationalist Party from 1962 to 1971 was an era of alignment with the West. In contrast, the rule of the Malta Labour Party emphasized the sovereignty of the country, leading to the complete withdrawal of British rule by 1979. The Nationalist Party retook the reins in the 1990s and applied for inclusion in the European Union. In 2004, Malta became a member of the EU after a referendum. Today, Malta is the fourth most densely populated sovereign country globally, despite being the 10th smallest by area. Its capital, Valletta, is the smallest capital in the European Union by area and population. Today, Malta is a great tourist destination. Its warm climate and recreational outlook on life offer an excellent resort for tourists. Several architectural and historical monuments provide a window into the country's rich history. We hope you enjoyed this video on the history of Malta. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Also, grab your free Mythology Bundle ebook while it's still available. The link is in the description.
At the Hamrun Club, we after volunteers, especially a kitchen hand. Anyone interested, there is a lot of incentives, but when you ring me, I will explain. If you ring up 0414-429-391, I will tell you a lot about it. Il-Gday Maltaussies show edin jorganizzaw Gold Coast Queensland Tour għas-sena id-dieħla mis-6 ta' Ġunju sa' 16 ta' Ġunju. Ijat varjat b'ħafna affarijiet ġo fih. Minn ġimijaj qabel ximkien differenti jekk kienu hawnhekk jew overseas, jafu li il-hotels u għall-ikel m'għandkomx għalfejn tikkonfondu, għax l-ewwel qed inħobb niekol, allura mhux se jkollkom problemi għall-ikel għax bħalma nikol jien tiklu intom. Fl-istess ħin, il-hotels mill-aqwa, all right, ukoll. Għall-aktar informazzjoni jew flyer, etc. ċempluli fuq xejn 414-429-391. U għaw, nista' ngħidilkom li kull ma fadalli 4 seats biss. Unless ikolli iktar kmamar tal-motel bata nkunu tellajn. Ek ma jkollix lilhom, ma nista' nagħmel xejn, kull ma fadal 4 biss. I trust that you enjoyed the show. And until we meet again next week, God bless. Good day, Maltese show. type of video and audio transfers on DVDs or CDs, please contact Joe Borg on 0414 429